Well, it was a big day at the National Assembly, and not just because of the finance minister's economic update. M&As were returning after a week away from Quebec City, and during that one-week break from the legislature, the Liberal Party found itself in crisis, and the Quebec Solidaire M&A was suddenly out of the caucus after revelations he was in talks with the PQ. Joining us now is political analyst Raphael Melancon. And I guess, Raphael, that 1 week break wasn't really a break. There was so much happening politically. Let's start with the Liberals. No sign of Marwa Rizki at the National Assembly today, and everyone still wants to know why she fired her chief of staff, Geneviève Ince, which is what led to the crisis in the first place. So what do you make of the fact that she wasn't there today?
Well, obviously, she didn't want to face the media and all the questions she probably has received also from her own party, from her colleagues former colleagues from the Liberal Party, of course. Now, what we heard also today is Pablo Rodriguez, the leader of the Liberal Party, admitting to the media that this whole situation with Marwa Rizki was actually hurting his party because, in a crisis management, Maya, you want the crisis to be over. You want to put the lid on the boiling kettle as soon as possible. You want the crisis to be over within 48, 72 hours, unless it might hurt your party's reputation on the long term here. And this crisis has been going on now for a week. And there's no end in sight so far because, yet again, Marwa Rizki still refuses to disclose any information she has at the moment. So, of course, it's a very tough crisis to manage for the Liberals, very tough crisis for Pablo Rodriguez's leadership as well. But as long as Marwa Rizki will refuse to disclose any information, we won't have any answers to all those questions that are left unanswered so far. And this whole crisis will continue for the Liberals.
And we should also note that Liberal M&A Greg Kelly, who is married to Marwa Rizki, was not seen at the National Assembly today either. Now, let's turn to Quebec Solidaire and Vincent Marissal. He was either kicked out of the caucus or decided to leave on his own, depending on which version of events you believe. Point is, he's currently sitting as an independent, but seems he's ready to run for the PQ in 2026. This has also been a very messy situation.
Very messy. So basically, Vincent Marissal just a few days ago announced that he would be sitting as an independent, criticizing his former party for being unmanageable, unable to being governed, and also criticizing also the shift of his party. He was one of those with the former leader Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who wanted the party to shift a little bit towards the center so they could broaden their coalition, they could bring in new voters, and eventually aspire at forming the next government so they could implement real change. Now he's harshly criticizing his party, and his party also is criticizing very harshly in return. It's on both sides here. Shots have been fired, obviously, in the past few days. And what we see here is basically the same thing we've seen with the Conservatives on the federal stage. It's basically you have someone who's trying to flee to another party. Now, it's clear here that from what we hear that Marissal is trying to flirt with the PQ. But what we hear also is very reminiscent of what we heard just a few weeks ago on the federal stage when the Conservatives were harshly attacking their MP who left the party. So not really good looking so far. And meanwhile, François Legault must be very happy because he's not the one who's in the hot seat right now. So for both the Liberals and for Quebec Solidaire, very, very hard week so far.
Yeah, okay, we'll have to leave it there, but lots to discuss as always. We'll continue. We'll pick up the conversation next time. Raphael, good to see you.
Absolutely, Maya. Always a pleasure. See you next time.